Let's talk about the biggest, deepest puzzles in science. I mean, the really tough ones. We're diving into a pretty radical new theory from a physicist named Travis Bergen, and it claims to have a single, elegant answer for almost all of them. So how does it work? Let's find out.
Okay, first up, the quantum measurement problem. You've got a particle that can be in a whole bunch of places at once. That's called a superposition. But the instant we measure it, poof, it's suddenly in just one spot. Why? Why does the simple act of looking seem to force reality to make up its mind? It is one of the weirdest and most profound mysteries in all of physics.
And then there's, well, us, the hard problem of consciousness. Think about it. Our brains are just this storm of chemical and electrical signals. So how does all that physical chaos create a single, clear, unified feeling of being here, right now? Where does this solid, concrete experience come from? How do you get mind from matter?
And what's the deal with time? You know, the actual laws of physics, they don't really care if time runs forwards or backwards. They work either way. So why is our universe a one-way street? Why do we remember the past, but not the future? You can't unscramble an egg, right? That's entropy, or disorder, always increasing. And that's the mystery of time's arrow.
So you've got three enormous, and you'd think totally separate questions: quantum mechanics, consciousness, and time. But what if they're not separate at all? What if they're all just different symptoms of the exact same deep underlying process? That is the absolutely stunning claim we're going to unpack today.
The proposed answer has a name: the Information Manifold Model, or IMM for short. And let me tell you, it completely flips the script on how we think about the universe we see and the one that might be hiding just underneath.
The first big idea here is the information manifold. The best way to think about it is like the source code of reality. It's not the 3D world we walk around in. It's this incredibly complex, high-dimensional space where every single possible state of a system exists all at once, all connected in this rich web. Everything that could be just is, right there in the manifold.
So on one hand, you've got the deep reality of this manifold. It's complex, it's multi-layered, it's full of potential. And on the other hand, you have our everyday experience. It's simple, it's singular, it's definite. You know, the coffee cup is here. The huge question is, how do we get from that rich, complex thing on the left to the simple perception on the right?
The theory says there's a bridge, and it's called experiential projection. Imagine you have a really complex 3D object, right? And you shine a light on it, casting a simple, flat 2D shadow on the wall. Our consciousness, the very act of observing, is that projector. It's a compression of information. And here's the absolute key: it's irreversible. You can't rebuild that 3D object just by looking at its shadow.
So we have this one central idea. Our experience is just a low-dimensional, irreversible projection, a shadow of a much higher dimensional reality. Now let's watch how this one concept starts to knock over those massive scientific mysteries like a row of dominoes.
Okay, remember that quantum measurement problem? Why does looking at a particle force it into one state? Well, the IMM says there's no collapse at all. The particle was always in superposition on the manifold. The thing is, our act of observing is a projection, and by its very nature, a shadow can only be in one place. Our experience is always singular because the projection process fundamentally throws away all the other possibilities.
This also explains the really weird rules of quantum probability. Let's go back to that shadow analogy. When you project a complex object, you lose a ton of information about its depth and texture. But the shadow still has certain qualities, like its size or its darkness, right? The IMM says that the math of quantum probability is just the geometric rule for figuring out the weight of that informational shadow. Probability isn't some strange magic. It's just what's left over after the projection.
Okay, so this one idea seems to explain quantum measurement and probability. I mean, that's already huge. But the chain reaction doesn't stop there. Now we get to time itself, and you're not going to believe this: gravity.
We usually think of entropy as just randomness, a messy room. But the IMM completely redefines it. Every single time an observation happens, every time a conscious moment occurs anywhere in the universe, information is lost in that projection. So in this model, entropy is the grand total, the accumulated, irreversible information loss that has been happening moment by moment since the very beginning of time.
And boom, this gives us a beautiful explanation for why time only moves forward. The arrow of time is the arrow of information loss. You can't go back in time for the exact same reason you can't reconstruct that 3D object from its 2D shadow. That information is gone
forever. Time moves forward simply because projection is a one-way street.
And right here is where the theory makes its most mind-bending claim. This quote says it all. Gravity thus arises, not as a force, but as a geometric response to informational scarring. Okay, what on earth could that mean?
So picture all that accumulated entropy, all that information lost from countless projections over billions and billions of years. The theory says it acts like scars on the very fabric of the information manifold. It literally deforms it, warps its geometry. And how do we experience that curvature of the deep reality? We feel it as gravity. So mass doesn't curve spacetime. Instead, the ongoing process of observation and information loss curves the underlying manifold, and we experience that as the force of gravity.
Okay, so this theory has taken us from the tiniest quantum bits all the way out to the cosmos. But it also has some really profound things to say about our own minds, our own personal human experience of reality.
The theory suggests that our own consciousness runs on a constant feedback loop. We sample information through our own unique perspective, our brain makes a prediction or an expectation about what that information means, and then we act on it. And this cycle, sample, predict, act, is constantly running, literally defining our personal reality from one moment to the next.
Now, what's so fascinating here is how this framework looks at neurodivergence. The IMM suggests that conditions like autism or ADHD aren't deficits. They're simply different stable settings on that same universal cycle. So, for instance, an autistic profile might involve super high-resolution sampling of the world, which makes forming predictions really precise, but also really effortful. An ADHD profile might involve the perspective updating faster than the expectations can lock in, which leads to a constant search for what's new. It reframes the whole idea as perspective divergence, not deficit.
Okay, let's just take a step back and look at the whole incredible picture this theory is painting. It all comes down to one single powerful idea.
The beauty of this theory is its logical chain. It all starts with one core idea: experiential projection. That projection has to lose information. That's just how it works. That information loss happens to explain quantum probability. The one-way nature of that loss is the arrow of time and entropy. And finally, the accumulated scarring from all that loss bends the geometry of reality, and we feel that as gravity. It's this incredible, unified picture that connects the quantum, the cosmic, and the conscious.
And that leaves us with one final and truly profound thought to chew on. If this information manifold model is on the right track, it means our entire reality, everything we see, feel, and measure, is basically a lower dimensional projection. It's a shadow of a much richer, deeper reality. Which forces us, of course, to ask the ultimate question. If our reality is just the shadow, what's casting it?